Welcome, Seth Harwood, to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me on. I think crime does pay.
It's paying off for you, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Every time I sign the book, a lot of times I sign the book, I write inside it, "Thank you for supporting my life of crime."
So let's let's show the book to the folks so they can see this.
Is the book.
So
Jack Wakes Up, Three Rivers Press, a division of Random House. Very happy to have it out. Came out May 5th, and it's been out for just over 2 months now. Doing great.
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
So tell us about Jack Wakes Up. What is the sort of what happens in the book? Give us the overview.
Jack Wakes Up is sort of an action movie as a book. It involves Jack Palms, a one-time Hollywood action movie one-hit wonder who sort of got down and out, moved up to San Francisco, got his life back on track after some problems for a couple of years, and now he's looking to make some money, and he gets drawn in on this drug deal with some Czechoslovakians, as you were saying.
Yep.
Sort of not maybe necessarily the best of decision-making, but he gets drawn in on this drug deal. He starts to find that he's enjoying himself. He stays away from the drugs and all of that, but he gets pulled in with some San Francisco cops, some San Francisco drug dealers and Colombians, some underground mafia types, and next thing you know, he's like neck deep in all of this stuff, and the only thing he can do is figure out how to act his way through it to get out of it alive.
Wow. So who plays Jack Palms in the movie?
Oh, that's a good question. We've been discussing this for about 3 years now, and it's gone everything from Bruce Willis to Jason Statham.
You see, I see Jason Statham. That's sort of what I've always seen for it.
But the problem with Jason Statham is that he makes a lot of bad movies. He has a knack for making the bad call. You know, the guy from Fast and the Furious, maybe the guy from Prison Break. Any one of these guys I think could be really cool. My wife is really into the Gerard Butler.
Yeah, that'd be a good choice too, actually.
Yeah.
So let's talk first about your journey to be published. So you start off. So I read about you online, and you started off. You have an MFA in English. So
creative writing.
There's a creative
Fiction.
writing. Okay. So you actually went to school to be a novelist, essentially.
Absolutely. I
so
studied.
You start off. You knew you wanted to do this right away.
Totally. I knew that I wanted to be a writer. I started writing novels in the mid '90s. And by the late 90s, I sort of had taken a step back and decided that I needed to write short stories to really cut my teeth and figure out how to write the craft of fiction. I took a number of short story and creative writing classes at Harvard Extension. I was in Boston, and I was taking night classes. And then I went to the University of Iowa Writers Workshop, which is one of the premier places that you can go to learn how to write. I studied with people like Frank Conroy, Marilyn Robinson, and basically at that point, I was really taking the traditional route towards getting published, trying to get the recognition from the mainstream, getting the big university name, the MFA from the Writers Workshop, sending out my stories to lots of literary journals. And, as that went along, and I got out of the Writers Workshop in 2002, it took me a couple of years, and everyone was telling me that I had to write a novel, and I decided the novel that I wanted to write was going to be influenced by movies that I've liked, TV series that I've liked, like The Sopranos and The Wire, and I just decided I wanted to write a novel that was going to be fun and full of action, and so I wrote Jack Wakes Up, and then I started sending it out to agents and showing them what was going on with the book, and there was some interest there, but I just realized I needed to come up with my own way of bringing it out, and I saw what guys like you and Scott Sigler were doing. It really made sense to me that if I was going to put my book on the internet, which is where I wanted to put it to get it to readers, after publishing these stories in these journals where I would send hundreds of submissions and get like 1 or 2 in, I finally got them published, and then when I got a short story on the internet, people were responding it right away.
So let me actually roll you back for a second.
Yeah.
So you wrote this book
in
what,
2005 I wrote this book, and started sending it out to agents.
And so you send it out to how many people? How many agents did you send it out to?
A dozen, let's say.
Okay.
And these were people who weren't just blind submissions. These were people who...
You had introductions to them?
Yeah, they represented friends of mine from the Writers Workshop, people that I knew. And, it didn't take a long time to realize that the energy that I was putting into that...
It just wasn't coming out.
It wasn't coming back. It's a small number of people. They have huge slush piles. Even people that I was talking to on the phone and were giving me feedback about the book and how they wanted me to revise it, you know, I would send them the revised copy 3 months later, and then it was like they had never heard from me, and I never hear back from them. And it was just like...
It's a completely different world from what I've seen. So.
It's totally different, and what it did to me was that it stopped me from writing new stuff. Because I just felt like all I could do was keep revising this book, and I had revised it and
You'd
worked really hard on it.
emotionally left it behind a long time ago.
Well, I just really worked my tail off on revising it, and so I was ready to move on to write some new stuff, and it just felt like as a writer... If I felt like all I could ever do was revise stuff, I was never going to get anywhere. And so I needed something else that I could do with the book. I wanted to put it out online. For a long time, I had been a big fan of listening to books on CD.
So when did you sort of make the mental jump to continuing to try to pursue it traditionally to, hey, I got to find a different angle, and then you know, did you start looking around for that different angle? Did you know it was online, or did it sort of fall in your lap? How did that all happen for you?
Well, so I had a story published online with a journal called Story Glossia. And it was free, it was out there, and I got all kinds of responses from it because my friends could just go online and read it. They didn't have to go hunt out this journal that was somewhere from some university press. And I realized that, you know, putting fiction online, people were starting to read online and look for fiction online. And I had never really read a lot of fiction online, but I had listened to books on CD in the car driving to work and stuff like that. And so when I saw what you guys were doing with podcasting...
Now, how did you find that, though? I'm curious how that fell into your lap. How did you discover audiobooks?
This guy that I was friends with in Boston, I went back to Boston in the spring of 2006, frustrated because I wasn't getting agent representation, and I started talking to friends, and I knew I wanted to make a website, and I didn't have any idea how to do it, and some of them started coaching me on that. And one of them said, I've been listening to this guy, Scott Sigler, who's blowing it up on audiobooks. People are really listening to him. I think he's doing great stuff, and why not try that yourself? And it just clicked for me. It was like, yeah, doing audio of the book. I love listening to books on audio. I can't read a book on the internet or on my computer, but if someone were to give me a book on audio that I liked, I would totally be into it. And so it just made sense to me, and that's what I wanted to do.
Cool. Okay. Although I've had several people on the show who did the Amazon bum rush, or whatever you want to call it. I haven't. No one's really described it yet on the show. So why don't you take us through, first of all, what it is? Assume people here don't know what it is. So what is that, and then how do you go about doing it, and how effective is it?
Well, effectively, what happened for me was that I had been writing. I knew I had this audience, and I had been writing letters to agents and editors. I had been writing letters to agents for a while, saying I have an audience of this many thousand. They want to buy my book. You should represent me so that we can find a way to sell the book. And ultimately, that wasn't getting any traction. So I had to go to Amazon to really show them that I could sell copies by reaching the tops of the Amazon charts, because that would get people's attention. And people see, oh, wow. Like, it was basically a way to confirm that I could sell copies. And so, you know, I planned it for a certain day that the book was going to release from a small print-on-demand press, which was called Breakneck Books. This was in March of 2008.
Is that that's Jeremy Robinson's thing? Right?
Jeremy Robinson, absolutely. He was really behind it, and he was great to work with. And we brought it out through Breakneck Books. We chose Palm Sunday because of the main character being Jack Palms, and everyone in the internet space knew about it. And so, you know, it was literally like, this is the day that we storm Amazon. People went and bought it up and bought it up, and it was like, in the morning of that day, I had this brunch for local Palms daddies and Palms mamas in the areas, and
those are what you call fans of your
the
book.
Jack Palms,
Palm
the Palms daddies, and the Palms mamas. So the local ones met me at this coffee shop, and we were sort of like working on the internet there to see what was going on Amazon. And Amazon updates every hour in terms of their rankings. And Sigler showed up, and he was showing me how to look at the separate categories like crime and mystery, hard-boiled, thriller. Different stuff. And so we were looking at the rankings on those different charts, but we were also looking at it in terms of movers and shakers on Amazon and overall in books. And basically, I was just looking to climb that chart of overall books during the day, and it went up steadily, and there's definitely a lag time there. But, you know, by about 3 or 4 o'clock or even 5 o'clock Pacific, I had cracked the top 50 on Amazon. I was number 45 in books overall.
Wow. That's amazing. So you were above.
Awesome.
You were probably above some, classic authors.
Everything.
Tolkien, maybe Stephen King.
It was like
there's you, Stephen King.
Yeah, it's like
Tolstoy.
me, then Kite Runner, then like who knows what.
That's
but also,
awesome.
I was number 1 in crime and mystery. So it was like me, then James Patterson.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's fantastic.
It was awesome, and it was such a rush and a real way to engage with the audience because they could feel the rush too.
Sure.
It felt like something they were involved in, and they were helping to make the push, and it was just dynamite to be a part of that.
Yeah, I remember that day. I got my copy on Kindle.
It was so exciting.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was fantastic.
Yeah.